Welcome to Talking It Out. I'm Jonathan Geffner, and my very special guest today is Dale Brown, a wonderful ventriloquist. He breathes life into stage characters, all kinds of characters on the stage. As one of the country's leading banquet performers, his professional comedy presentations are fast-paced and generate nonstop hilarity and fun for all sorts of audiences. A Wisconsin native, he has appeared at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and you may have seen him on various TV shows on Entertainment Tonight, Good Morning America, The Today Show, CBS This Morning, a variety of other shows, news and talk shows. So, Dale, it's a pleasure and honor to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. My pleasure.
We don't really know each other. We haven't talked much. I think we exchanged a few words here and there at ventriloquist conventions many years ago. I remember seeing you in my first conventions. I started going to these ventriloquist conventions. And for those of you out there who don't know, there are annual vent conventions that are held in Kentucky. It used to be Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. I don't know if it's still in Fort Mitchell. I haven't been there for a long time.
It's at the right now. It's at the Holiday Inn at the airport, which I think is not really Fort Mitchell, but they call it Cincinnati. So
Cincinnati, right across the river is
right,
Fort Mitchell, Cincinnati. So in my beginning of my ventriloquism career, that was about 36 years ago, 35 years ago. I went to my first convention right then. And then I went to about 12 years in a row, and you were at. It seemed like you were at most of them. I don't in those days, so I saw you perform back then. You were one of my favorite performers, one of my inspirations in those days.
Thanks.
I don't know if I actually ever said it to you, but I'm saying it to you now. Especially liked your stage persona. I felt you have a very likable, easygoing, and inviting kind of personality on stage with your characters, and you have very vibrant characters. Chip Martin, I believe, is your main character. So would you call him?
That's right.
Yeah, and then you have a few others.
Yep.
So I'm glad we could finally talk, really, and let other people join in to this conversation. So, what was your path to becoming a ventriloquist?
Well, let's see. Paul Winchell was my inspiration. So I was probably about in sixth grade, I think, when I got my first Jerry Mahoney dummy. I probably from money from my paper route, and that's how I started. So
he was my inspiration as well, but not in childhood. It was later, as a young man, I became a ventriloquist. But I remembered him, and I sought out videos in those days.
Right,
we didn't have the internet yet, so I found these VHS videos of him and studied what he did, and he was my main inspiration as well. This whole style of performing.
What he did on his show on television was amazing. With the puppets, with somebody else operating the arms, and they would juggle, play drums. I mean, it was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, he was very innovative in that way. That was something new. But just his style of interacting with the puppets, it was always so high energy and exciting and fun, electric, So as well as he's being highly skilled ventriloquist. So that's why he was always, and still I guess my favorite, although there are so many great ventriloquists, past and present now too.
Right.
Was it as a child or later?
Yeah, I was about in sixth grade when I started doing it. And I did it for, I don't know, about 5 years, I think. And then in high school, I stopped. I didn't pick it up again until I was a teacher for 6 years. I was a journalism teacher, and I had to MC a banquet. And I ordered a puppet from Clinton Detweiler, and he helped me MC. And I hadn't done it since I was a kid. So, but people seemed to like it. And that actually, shortly after that, I started working as a banquet performer, and then it got way out of hand after that.
How did your family react to your becoming?
My mother was always very supportive, very supportive. I had all kinds of different puppets, marionettes, hand puppets, and things. But yeah, she was always go for it kind of lady. So
how about your friends? Did they? What were their reactions?
I think they must have liked it. I think my first public show ever was when I was a Boy Scout, and so that was probably in junior high or something. And my friends were all part of the act at that time, so they were pretty supportive. That's one of the things. I think even my friends today, they think it's unique and they follow it. Some of my friends have even gone to the ventriloquist convention, even though they're not ventriloquists.
You did other kinds of puppetry too. You mentioned marionettes.
Yeah, just when I was pretty young, I did marionettes and I did hand puppets and things, and made elaborate stages and did all this, all the things a typical kid does with that, gets hooked on puppets.
At what point did you decide that ventriloquism is your focus, or was that from the start? You knew that that was the
No,
focus?
it was after while I was teaching and I was started doing more and more banquets. I realized that that was something that I wanted to do maybe full time. Did you ever meet Bill Boley? I
I
used to,
did. Yes, I
yeah, I
remember
used to
him.
correspond with Bill Boley a lot. And when I was all set to go full time into ventriloquism, he wrote me a letter and said I was in marketing at that time at a public relations firm. And he said, before you go full time, you should try to integrate your ventriloquism into your marketing company. That was the best advice I ever got because 90% of my work at one time was corporate work with mascot puppets and doing motivational programs for corporates with my puppets and all those things. And that was all because of Bill Boley's advice.
Oh, so that was very beneficial advice for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You are mainly a corporate and banquet kind of performer. Is that your main kind
Right.
of?
Eventually, I owned up my own marketing and public relations firm, and the firm was called Brown and Martin was the puppet. So that in itself got a lot of recognition. But we would do programs in the '80s, late '80s. The economy was not doing well, so I had this idea. We were working for J.I. Case, and they had to do some employee meetings to talk about salary. There weren't going to be any raises, and it was going to be there's some cutbacks and things. And I was working with the vice president of marketing at that time, and I said, why don't you have the puppet come out of the audience as one of the disgruntled employees and ask you all the questions that they would like to have the nerve or the opportunity to do? And he said, that's a great idea. So we did that, and we did that in meetings all over the country for J.I. Case. And it was very, very successful, so successful that the Wall Street Journal heard about it and came to my office and interviewed me about it and did an article on us. And that article gave me business for the next 5 years.
You were all this time through the years involved in journalism, or part of these years, some of these
Well,
years?
my degree is in journalism. So I was a journalism teacher for a while, and then a Kohler company actually hired me away from teaching and to be working their public affairs department. And then I went into public relations on my own.
Have you gone full time at some point as a ventriloquist, or was it always part time?
Yeah, I guess you'd call it part time, but when I owned my firm, the majority of my time was spent with puppet work because we had puppets that would represent. It was funny. I worked for Kohler and I never used my puppets for them, but after I opened my own public relations firm, I used puppets for Kohler Company for 20 years. So, and mascot puppets and meetings and that kind of thing. But the puppets wouldn't just appear at banquets. They would edit newsletters. They would do videos, training videos. They would conduct sales contests. And I mean, it made everything fun because one of the great things about using humor is that it grabs attention and people remember the things that are said longer and understand it better. It just makes the whole communication setting better. There's no anxiety, I guess. When you went to the convention, were you doing it full time then?
Well, when I first went, I was just a beginner. I went the first year, a few months after I began learning ventriloquism. So I had not really maybe actually I did a few shows, or like right off the bat, very quickly, but I wasn't much of a performer yet. And then, yes, I became a full-time within a couple of years, or actually within a year or so, I became virtually full-time. I was teaching a bit on the side, and performing as a pianist a bit. And so through the years, I've done other things too, and continued teaching and piano playing and some acting and other things. So wide variety actually of things, but ventriloquism became my virtually full-time career within a short time.
The convention is what convinced me to go into it professionally. I mean, when I first went, I didn't know how good I was. I didn't know if I could do it. When I went to the convention, it met so many supportive people, and they would help me answer all my questions. And yeah, within 2 years after that, I was doing a lot of work. So.
Do you recall when your first convention was? How many years ago that was?
It was in the '80s, is all I could tell you. I don't know.
So that's about the same first time that I started going.
Right.
And you, from my early memories of you, you were a consummate professional from the first time I saw you.
Wow.
So you were already.
That took a while. My original Chip Martin is in the museum.
That's wonderful. Vent Haven Museum.
Right. And we just had the grand opening a week ago. I was down there for the grand opening with they had a special evening for the major donors and then all the volunteers and such the next night. And Jeff Dunham was there, and Jimmy V. A lot of people that are involved with the museum were all there. It was really a great event.
So who built that first Chip Martin?
It was a Lovick figure.
Heard of him, Craig Lovick, is that the name?
That's right,
Yeah.
Craig. And yes. I think I probably got it from Mayer.
And so now you have obviously a different one. So who built this one?
Was also Alan Seamock built the one I use now.
Oh, really? Alan
Seamock. For about 30 years. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. He was a wonderful figure builder. For those of you who are not ventriloquists, the proper name is ventriloquial figures, but people call them dummies also.
Right.
Or whatever, puppets, ventriloquist puppets. I wish I had gotten the Seamock figure at some point. Now that he's gone, he's left us sadly just a couple of years ago.
Right.
It would be wonderful because he made wonderful figures, of which Chip is one of them.
Yeah, he made my duplicate Chip also. And then when I've been retired for a couple of years now. When I retired, Jimmy V bought my duplicate, which is identical to the one I still have.
How do you feel about that? Do you ever have pangs of regret, like someone else is using my Chip Martin or something like that?
Yeah, Jimmy V just has it in his little museum, so it's not being. But he's a collector, so
I have a feeling you might feel some of that discomfort or jealousy if you actually used it, right? It's just like, hey, that's my character, right? I know
that's right. But that's why I think most of my characters will probably go to the museum, because I really don't want anybody else using them.
Yeah, I know that feeling. And these days, where do you usually perform? Is it still mostly corporate kind of events, banquets?
I haven't performed in the last couple of years. I sort of decided to retire. My banquet work has, it was, I guess it was compared to Don Rickles a little bit. It's just not in vogue now. You know what I mean? I have an article, a matter of fact, this is from the 80s, where they called Chip, he says Chip his work is similar to an axe murderer, but he does it on a stage in a spotlight. And he says, given his choice of weapons, he'll use a train. He missed his calling. He should have specialized in building gallows or plugging in electric chairs. And then he says, Chip actually is just a hammer with a voice looking for someone to pound on. So, I mean, most of my banquet work, that's why people hired me. And it's just not in vogue anymore, so 2 years ago I sort of went, I didn't want anybody to hire me and then have somebody complain that they hired me, so I thought
so is it the political correctness era that we're in that makes it difficult?
It sort of forced me out. And I did clean shows, but people always found some reason to be offended, I guess. If out of 100 people there would be one person that would find something that they didn't like.
Yes, I know the problem, because we all face that problem these days.
We do.
This kind of hypersensitivity and the political correctness. It's a big obstacle for comedians, entertainers in general.
It is, I think. Some people work around it, but some people don't have the issue. I was talking to Jeff Dunham at the museum's grand opening. People buy tickets to see him, so they know what they're going to get, so he can do what he wants, because the people he has followers, he has fans. But when somebody hires you for a banquet or a private event, those people didn't buy a ticket. They're there because they have to be there, or so it's a whole different type of audience.
It does make it more challenging, I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
We have some video clips from one of your performances, so let's watch that now. Dale Brown in a live performance.
What? I know what stinks. What stinks? I stink. Is that right? One little disadvantage is living outside. Bertha, I don't know how you can stand to live outside. Listen, I may be poor, but I'm proud. You're proud? I got something no millionaire has got. Is that right? What's that? I got no money. Still, it must be very inconvenient to live on the street. It must be very inconvenient. What do you mean? Well, for instance, how do you get your mail? Now what? How do you get your mail? Now, nail? Right. Usually the case of Budweiser. No. Wrong kind of mail. No. I mean, how do you get letters? Oh, just like anybody else, 2 weeks late. Is that right? Have you always been poor? Oh yeah, we were so poor that when I was born, my nana didn't even go to the hospital. Didn't go to the hospital. Not till she took a look at me. Then she went to the hospital. Is that right? I was an ugly baby. Ugly baby. Yeah. Never know what to look at me now. Why are they giggling? Listen, looks aren't everything. No, they're not. No. They were. This whole row would be really depressed, I'll tell you that. Boy, you know, it's really hurting for cash now, huh? Look at this. Oh, I got an itch. What? I got a scratch in your ear. Yeah, it's got, that's it. Get my neck. Your neck. Yeah. Oh, I love this. Watch the leg. I know. Listen, why don't we start out? Yeah. Why don't you explain to everybody exactly what you are? Huh? Tell them what you are. I'm a dog. No, they know you're a dog. I mean, the technical name, like, I'm a person, but the technical name is Homo sapien. I'm a Homo sapien. You know what that means? Do you know what that means? What does that mean? It means I'm not too keen on having your hands so close to my tail. No. The dog was right. What do you mean the dog was right? You must really be hurting your cash. No. You got my pillow? Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Is this it? Yep. Put it where it belongs. Okay. Hemorrhoid? Oh, I'm sorry. Right. You okay? Yeah. Occupational hazard, right. So how long have you been a jockey? 50 years. 50 years, yeah. Well, you must know an awful lot about horse racing. Well, you'd think so, yeah. You know, I've often wondered what they call that wreath they put around the horse's neck. What is it? You know, the wreath they put around the horse's neck when they take it to the winner's circle? The what? The winner's circle? Never heard of it. Never heard of the winner's circle? Mm-mm. You've been racing 50 years, you've never finished first? I'm lucky if I finish at all. Why would anybody bet on you? On do? You do. Well, still, you must know a lot about horse racing. You'd think so. Yeah, right. I understand that horse racing is a very dangerous sport. True. Yeah. What is the most dangerous part of the horse race? Well, for me, it's after the race, hiding out from the folks who bet on the horse. No. I mean, during the race, what's the most, I understand the start is the most dangerous part of a horse race. No. Most dangerous part of the horse race is the second turn. Second turn. Yep. Why is that so dangerous? That's usually where I fall off. I hate that turn. Thank you. Thank you very much. Where the hell are we? So we're at the, this is part of the Waukesha Winter Jamboree. Really, we're at the Waukesha Civic Theater. You're kidding. No, very special show. You're kidding. No, this is the Waukesha Civic Theater, right? And this is part of the Winter Jamboree. That's right. And they invited me to be here, right, at their special event. That's right. Big deal. What do you mean, big deal? Aren't you glad to be here? Huh? Aren't you glad to be here? Oh, it's real close to a thrill. I'll remember this moment for as long as it takes us to get back to the car. All right. How much are we getting anyway? You don't ask that. The hell I don't. No. I mean, it's not polite. No. Besides, you could put on a good program tonight even if it was for nothing. What? I said you could put on a good program even if it was for nothing. Uh-huh. If I'm not getting paid, this will be a good-for-nothing program, I'll tell you that. You should be very happy to be here tonight. Yeah, with this act, I should be very happy to be anywhere. I've worked a long time to get where I am. Waukesha? No. I mean, to become a professional ventriloquist. Oh, what? To become a professional ventriloquist. You know, a lot of people laughed when I said I wanted to be a ventriloquist. Well, they're not laughing now.
That was Dale Brown in action, some excerpts from a live performance. You mostly were known for corporate work, banquets in particular, right?
Right.
So, I think we have a clip also from what you want to set that up. Some of the
F.C. Johnson at Wax. It was at, they had an employee meeting every year at the end of the year. And at the end of that meeting, they would pass out their bonus checks. So, and the meeting was televised to some of their branch offices and such all over the country. But in the audience, there were about 2,000 people, I think, at their corporate, it's their athletic place in Racine, Wisconsin. It was the first time they'd ever used humor to incorporate humor into the annual business meeting. And that was my role in it. And it was pretty typical what I ended up doing it for many, many companies.
Great. So let's take a look at that. An excerpt from one of Dale Brown's corporate shows.
I don't suppose there's anyone out there that would like to come up here and do this for me.
I do. Hey, wait a minute. I'll help you. Wait. I'll help you, Joe.
Wait, just a minute here. I was really only kidding. Who are you?
I'll be glad to help you. My name is Chip Martin. I work in the carpenter shop.
Well, who's that?
But I must look like a vice president because they let me sit in the front.
Well, who's that with you, Chip?
Oh, this is my supervisor. You could say he sort of has a hand in everything I do. Say, is it true that all these guys and ladies in the first couple of rows are vice presidents?
That's right, they are.
Shows you all the clowns are not in a circus, doesn't it?
These people are not here to be insulted.
No?
No.
Where do they usually go? Hey, there's Ray Farley, the president and new CEO of Johnson. Hi, Mr. Farley. Who's working his head? No.
That was Dale Brown in action again. So,
You know, we made fun of the president in that clip, the president of Johnson, Mr. Johnson, actually, and everybody, including him, thought it was funny. By the way, he didn't know I was going to be there. And today, I would feel uncomfortable doing that because you wouldn't know who would think it was funny and who would.
yes, it's one of the good examples of the problems we face as entertainers these days.
That's right.
You mentioned Paul Winchell before, the great ventriloquist, as your main inspiration. Are there any other inspirations that you've had? Any other people who have also inspired you in your career?
Well, mainly it was comedians, I think. I always was a big fan of Don Rickles. My humor was sort of along his lines. I think Jeff Dunham once said he gave the number of jokes you need to do in a minute, and it's a lot. And that means you have to have a lot of one-liners, a lot. And I really like that. I've used that throughout my career. I used a lot of one-liners, and most people, it's hard to get a lot of different laughs in a minute. But Jeff does it, so it's,
yes.
It's possible.
I think I remember hearing him give a little talk about that at one of those conventions.
Was it 8? Did he say 8 laughs a minute?
What I remember was a laugh every 10 seconds, so it would be 6 per minute. But
yeah, okay, that would be right.
Yeah,
that would.
That's what's stuck in my head. So
yeah, I would believe that.
It's tough to actually achieve that.
Right.
In all these performances through your career, what was the most unexpected thing that ever happened? Did you ever encounter something that just took you by surprise, or made the performance particularly difficult or challenging, something like that?
You know, it didn't happen to me exactly, but I was at a comedy club where Jay Johnson was performing one night. He was on stage, and during his act, his puppet must have said something about somebody in the audience, and the guy from the audience got up. There was a prop palm tree on the edge of the stage. The guy picked up the palm tree and threatened to hit the puppet with the palm tree. And Jay and the puppet somehow talked the guy off the ledge.
You were a witness to this.
Yeah, I was. Eventually, the guy put the palm tree back and went back to his seat. But Jay was a consummate professional.
Yeah, there are a number of stories floating around. Ventriloquists often encounter things like that. I haven't had one exactly like that, but I have encountered audience members getting angry and then talking back to the public specifically.
Right, and isn't it interesting? They always talk to the puppet. They don't talk to you, right?
It's a tribute to us, right?
Absolutely, it is.
We're good at what we're doing.
This guy was going to hit the puppet with the tree, not Jay. So.
Right. Yeah. So we should always feel proud of ourselves when that happens, right?
That's right.
Well, soft versus hard puppets. You know, the traditional ventriloquist puppets, ventriloquial figures, are carved out of wood. That's the traditional kind. Then the other, in subsequent eras, people started using composites of different kinds of materials to replicate that look of the wood. And so the hard figures like that, they're called hard figures because they're wooden or look like wooden. But in more recent decades, people have gone to soft puppets inspired by the Muppets, the same kind of soft foam and cloth made out of that. And now ventriloquists use both kinds. Soft have become more and more popular, I think, numbers-wise, replacing hard
Right.
more often because of their flexibility and lightness to carry around and all that stuff.
Right.
But you use both because Chip, your main character, is a hard figure made by Alan
Absolutely.
Seamark.
Right.
And then I know you have Bertha, is a soft
Bag
puppet.
lady, right? Yes.
Bertha, I think, is
Bertha. Yeah, my original was made by Verna.
Verna, legendary soft puppet maker.
Right.
I have a couple of Vernas too. I wish I had more now that she's
Oh,
gone.
really?
And so, do you have a preference? Soft or hard?
Well, I don't know if we all owe a debt of thanks to Jim Henson for making puppets okay to use for adults, because until he came along, you couldn't do that. So, but soft puppets are they're easier to use. They're, like you said, they're easier to transport. Everything about them is easier. And nowadays, the artists that are making them are extraordinary. They're really good. But I still prefer the hard figure because I think it takes, like, and you're a great example, it takes a lot more skill to operate and make a hard figure seem alive. A soft puppet sort of does it on its own, but a hard figure, it's very difficult. It takes a lot of practice and talent, and you got to do a lot of shows to learn how to make a hard figure appear to be alive. So that's my preference.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Although I also think, I wonder if you agree, that a lot of ventriloquists, they sort of take it too much for granted about how easy it is to use soft puppets. So they really don't pay much attention or enough attention to the animation, because they think, oh, it's easy, I have a soft puppet, I don't have to even think about it. But and then the animation is not good.
You're correct. Yep.
Yeah. So but it is easier in the whole approach to it. It makes it easier,
Right.
but you still always have to put the work into to make it work. The way I personally feel, I do enjoy both for the different reasons, but I am partial to the hard figures. Part of it is, for me, that I feel that I'm connected to the whole tradition of ventriloquism, because they used to be all hard figures.
Right.
And I sort of feel like it's nice feeling like I'm part of that lineage, of the traditional ventriloquist. That's one thing. The other thing is, it feels more like a little person there, more solid,
I agree with all that. I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They are inanimate. We have to make them animate. We have to make them appear to be alive, and that's hard for a piece of wood.
What was your childhood dream since you discovered ventriloquism about in the sixth grade, I think you said? Was that your dream from then on, or did you have some other alternate dream of something?
Yeah, I went away from. I think at one point I probably did want to become a ventriloquist. I saw one at school once at a assembly program, and I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. But then I went away from it and got I got away from it in college because I played in a band to work my way through college, and I found that if you're in a band, it was easier to get a date than if you're a ventriloquist. So the band was better. But yeah, I just came back to it sort of by accident, doing the banquet work when I was a teacher, and then eventually I said, well, actually, people like Bill Boley and a few others said you should be doing this. So my mentor for manipulation of a hard figure was Bill DeMar. Did you ever meet him?
I did meet him, yes, long ago. Right.
He stayed at my house a few times when he was traveling through town, and he gave me a lot of great critiques on my manipulation and advice. He was the consummate. One part in Bill's show, he did a school show where he had Feldon the Frog, and he did 5 minutes, and the puppet never talked. He was
really
silent. Yes.
Wow.
5 minutes. Yeah, that's how good a manipulator he was. It was great. It's on YouTube somewhere if you want to look at it.
Yes, I'd love to check that out. That sounds very innovative and courageous.
Well, you're right.
Yeah. Now you're basically retired these days for performing, you said, but you still plan to perform sometimes?
I don't know if I will or not. I still lecture at the convention, and I sell books that Jimmy V and I have written a couple books together, and I did a few before on my own. So I like lecturing at the convention. I like still being around the ventriloquists and things, but I'm not sure if I'm going to really perform again.
What would be something that would change your mind, would draw you out, some kind of venue or experience, format, event that you would feel like that's so exciting or inspiring that you'd
Right.
I mean, just this is like magic wand thing. It doesn't even have to be something very likely or realistic, but some kind of performance venue or medium, like whether it be something on TV or a film or whatever. Is there something that you feel like you would really never turn that down because something like that?
Well, I used to say I would never turn performing at the convention down, because that, performing for your peers is the hardest thing, right? But
Yes.
I always really enjoyed it, and I always said I would never turn that down. But last year was the first year I turned it down, and I felt bad about it. I still think that's the best audience, because that's the most challenging. You better be good to be in front of 600 other ventriloquists. I once emceed a magic show in Chicago, and I was the only non-magician on the bill, and the audience was 1,000 other magicians, of 900 actually, 900.
Mhm.
So every magician that performed, everybody in the audience knew what they were doing, how they did it. I thought, those poor guys, I would never do that.
Well, I do hope, for selfish reasons, I hope that you do perform at least sometimes in the future, because it would be the world's loss if you don't perform at all.
Yeah,
Of course,
thank you.
it's your choice, but I'm sure there are countless people who would love to see you again live. But they can see still some of your work on YouTube. I know in other places. Where could people follow you? I know you're not very active now because you're not really performing, but where's the best way for people to see the things you've done, or to be aware if you do in the future?
Yeah, everything's pretty much on Facebook. Anything I do with puppets and seeing other events is on Facebook. And there's a few things that I do on YouTube once in a while, but Facebook's probably the best place. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm not real active on social media, but
yeah.
when I have to, I do it.
Well, we'll post that link for people under this
Great.
interview, so that they will be able to stay aware of what you're doing and watch the things that you've done in the past.
And I think a couple of my books are they're still on sale on Amazon. So 2 or 3.
Great. Well, if you give me the link to any of those, I'll be happy to post those as well.
Amazon's funny because there's a very famous author, Dale Brown. He's like in the top 10, I think, of selling books. And there was also at one time the basketball coach of, I think it was Louisiana or something. His name was Dale Brown too. I did a show at a convention center, and I was checking into the hotel next to the convention center, and I was just going to run in, check in, and then go to the venue. And as I turned around to walk out of the lobby, the receptionist said, "By the way, are you the Dale Brown?" Thinking there's two, and I went, "Well, it depends who's the Dale Brown." And she said, "The guy with the puppets." And I went, "I'm the Dale Brown." So my wife told my Al Gettler and a few other people that was like 25 years ago. And ever since then, my vent friends call me the. That's my nickname.
That's great. Well, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you are definitely the Dale Brown. So thank you so much for coming to our talk here, to talking it out with me, Dale Brown. It's been an honor and pleasure for you to be here today.
Thanks, Jonathan. And I really enjoy all of the things you've done. I think you have upped the ante for our art with your film work. It has been tremendous. I just can't wait to see more of it.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And so for that reason, and with Dale's recommendation here, everybody out there, you should subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that yet, and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified on new uploads. Won't miss any of the stuff that I'll be coming out with, the Trillo and Suede videos and other stuff that I have coming up very soon. So until next time, thank you. Thanks again, Dale, for joining me here, and everybody, see you soon.
My pleasure. Thanks.